Hi, I'm Camilla, and I was diagnosed with myeloma in 2012. I underwent a standard course of chemotherapy, followed by a stem cell transplant, and then another course of chemotherapy because of residual disease. I've been an ambassador for Blood Cancer UK now for just over 3 years, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk to Sarah about her research this afternoon.
Thanks very much, Camilla. It's lovely to meet you. So my name's Sarah. I'm based at the University of Birmingham, where I have a research lab where we do some work trying to understand a bit about myeloma. And very happy to talk to you more about that today.
Maybe we could start, Sarah,
Yeah.
with asking you about how you came to be involved in myeloma research.
For a number of years now, since my PhD, I've been studying the immune system. And so I'm relatively new to the field of blood cancer in general and myeloma. But for a number of years now, I've studied a type of immune cell called T cells. And we think these are a really important part of your immune system, since they do a few things, including coordinating the activity of the other cells in your immune system. And some types of T cells can actually kill other cells if they become infected with a virus, for example, or also cancer cells. So we think T cells are really important in controlling the growth of cancers. And we're trying to understand how T cells behave in the context of multiple myeloma. So after I finished my PhD, I worked for a few years as a postdoctoral researcher in Basel in Switzerland. And whilst I was there, we started doing research and trying to understand what happens with T cells when they become engaged in an immune response, particularly with respect to what we call their metabolism. And this is how T cells take up nutrients from their environment and how they break them down to generate the energy and the building blocks that they need to do all the important jobs that they do.
And perhaps you could just go on and tell us a little bit more about the focus of your research at the moment.
So since I've been here in Birmingham, we've been trying to understand whether that environment where myeloma develops, which is your bone marrow, how that impacts this metabolism or metabolic activity of T cells, because obviously within that environment, there might be limited availability of these nutrients that T cells need, or other factors that affect their metabolic activity, like the amount of oxygen that's present. So this is the kind of research that we're doing, is really trying to understand how that microenvironment where myeloma develops influences the activity of the immune cells, and particularly the T cells, which are present within that microenvironment, which are trying to do their job and control the growth of the cancer.
And how do you hope that the results of that research will impact on new treatments that we're able to develop, or how will they add to what's available for patients now?
That's a really good question. So we know that the immune system is really important at controlling the growth of different cancers. And over the last few years, that's been really highlighted because there's been quite a lot of new, what we call immunotherapies, which are kinds of treatments which are aimed at engaging the immune response and making the immune response work better at controlling the cancer. And these have been quite successful for quite a number of cancers. There are some new immunotherapies coming through for myeloma, which also look promising. But of course, the activity of the immune cells in the microenvironment, in the bone marrow, is crucial to the success of any of these treatments. So if we can understand factors within the bone marrow environment which might be limiting immune cell activity, and we can target those, it might lead to new therapies in their own right, but it also might lead to new therapies that can improve how well these existing immunotherapies are working and make them work better or for longer, just by improving the environment for those immune cells to work in.
Seems like a good point just to ask a question that came from our blood cancer community. Can you tell us about any other areas of research that might be connected or are going along at a similar time to the research that you're doing in terms of myeloma?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another really interesting question. There's a lot of research going on, which is really exciting, really promising. And I know of other research groups that I'm in contact with in the UK, working also along similar lines, trying to understand how to perhaps make the immune system work better against myeloma. And then also other groups who are perhaps looking more at the malignant plasma cells themselves, the myeloma cells, and trying to understand a bit about their biology, as we would say. So what's driving them to become transformed and to proliferate as they do, and are there ways that we can directly target that to control the growth of the cancer in that way. And then there's also people that are trying to understand ways that we can treat the bone disease associated with myeloma. As many myeloma patients will know, because this develops in the bone marrow, it can cause symptoms related to destruction of that bone, which can be quite painful and things. So there's other people working on trying to understand whether we can treat that to try and relieve some of the symptoms as well.
That all sounds very exciting. And how might the result of that work translate into developing new treatments? And
yeah, that's a really important question. So as we know that your immune system plays a really important job in controlling the growth of cancers. And so if we can identify a way to make your immune cells work better within that environment by understanding how that environment impacts your immune cells, then this might lead to new therapies which might work in their own right, on their own, to make your own immune system work better against the cancer. Or alternatively, these therapies might improve how well other treatments, which are also trying to get your immune system to work, how well they work. And this is an area where there's been a lot of growth and development in myeloma over the last couple of years, in these what we call immune-directed therapies or immunotherapies. There's quite a number now coming online for myeloma, which already demonstrate quite impressive responses, which is really, really exciting. But if we can find ways to make those treatments work better or for longer, by improving the environment in which they're working in, then this could really improve even further the sort of treatment options.
At the moment, first-line treatment anyway for myeloma is what one would refer to as more standard chemotherapy, and with that comes inevitably quite a number of significant side effects, and I think patients can find that quite debilitating. I know from my own experience that the fatigue, the neuropathy, it's unpleasant and can be very long lasting. Do you think that with these new therapies we might be able to make the side effects a little bit more tolerable and just make it generally easier for people to go on with their lives while they're undergoing treatment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important area. And certainly there is a lot of research going on aimed at trying to improve therapies in such a way that they cause less off-target effects and less toxicity and less side effects, because that's such an important part of the patient experience. Right? And so by better targeting therapies to different groups of patients depending on their disease, we hope to reduce some of the side effects. And also with these immune-directed or immunotherapies, which are now coming through into clinic, and which is kind of research area that I'm working on, we would hope that they would have fewer side effects compared to kind of conventional chemotherapy.
I suppose it leads me on to sort of ask, do you think how close are we then to a sort of paradigm shift in the treatments available for myeloma, it's still, while I personally find this a difficult term, it's still incurable, but people are living a lot longer and a lot better with it, which is obviously fantastic. But do you think that we're coming close to seeing a very significant change in outcome?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say that we possibly are already within a period of a paradigm shift. You're absolutely right that myeloma is still an incurable disease, unfortunately, and this is something that we're working towards as well, is hopefully finding a cure in a way. But compared to even 10 or 20 years ago, I think there's a huge there's a lot more treatment options now than there were then. So I was talking this through with my medical doctor colleagues over the last few days, and they were saying, compared to 20 years ago, they've got so many more options now to treat myeloma than they did have. And many of those are these sort of immune-directed or immunotherapy type approaches, which, have really demonstrated quite impressive activity in a number of patients, and hopefully we'll find ways to make those treatments work even better and potentially for longer as well.
Maybe if we could just sort of change direction a little bit. I know that in the last few years there's been a lot of in the media about the importance of lifestyle, things like exercise, sleep, diet, in particular the gut microbiome and its effect on our health and well-being. And I think more recently there have been some studies that have suggested that not only might those factors impact on your chance of getting cancer, but also might impact on the actual outcome and your response to different immunotherapies in particular. I just wondered what you thought of that in terms of myeloma and blood cancers in general.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting question. And I think this is a very exciting area of research. I think I would just sort of reiterate at this point that we don't really know what causes myeloma. And there are some risk factors like smoking, for example, which are probably not helpful. So at this stage, it's hard to say, you could do X or Y and prevent yourself from developing the disease because we really don't know what causes it. But in terms of how well your body then deals with the disease and also responds to treatment, I think there's certainly steps that individuals can take to improve their general health and well-being, which will certainly help them. So related to the microbiome, you're absolutely right in that there's some very interesting studies starting to come through, which suggest that in principle there is a relationship between the gut microbiome and the response to immune-directed therapies. But these are still very early stage, often using animal models of cancer and having very extreme scenarios, so having absolutely no gut microbiome versus a gut microbiome, so they're very important, these studies, in establishing the principle that there is some link there. But I think we're still a way off knowing or being able to say, yes, this is, this type of bacteria is absolutely helpful. But what I would say until we know that is just that we know that a varied and diverse microbiome is probably good for many different aspects of your health. And so the way to achieve that is through having a varied and diverse diet, which is also very helpful for your health for other reasons beyond just the microbiome. So I think that's certainly good advice. And then as you said, myeloma is a disease that people may live with for a number of years, as we still call it incurable, and hopefully with the different treatment options that are coming through to clinic now, people will be living longer with this disease as well. And so just keeping yourself healthy and fit and well will certainly improve how well you tolerate treatments, and you tolerate the different processes ongoing, and how well you feel in yourself as well. So I think this is, you know, absolutely good advice to any patients with the disease.
Thank you. I mean, I asked because I think, you know, a lot of people with myeloma, probably with blood cancer, you know, would like to, you know, feel that they were able to give themselves the best opportunity. So if there were, you know, for a good outcome. So if there were changes that one might be able to make to either help make going through treatment more tolerable, or even improving one's outcome, then I think, you know, that would probably be greatly welcomed by the, you know, blood cancer community.
I think absolutely, I can completely understand that people want to be able to do whatever they can do that's in their own control to hopefully improve their outcome, and also just improve their experience of living with this cancer. And I think that's another important point to note, is that you know, people may have myeloma for a number of years, and hopefully as treatments improve, people's life expectancy also improves. And so you know, if you keep yourself fit and healthy, have a good diet, keep exercise, and sort of just maintain your overall well-being, then you are going to manage that disease much better, and you also may influence your response to how well you respond to treatment as well.
So thank you, Sarah. I think we'll probably move on to the final question now, and just, you know, I think my understanding is that Blood Cancer UK have been helping to support one of your current projects, looking into, as you said, how the immune system helps to improve treatment for people with myeloma. How important is that funding to you and to other researchers like yourself?
So it's absolutely vital. It's really, really important. And I would say that, you know, in the UK at the moment, there's a huge amount of really, really exciting research going on across the whole sort of medical field, really. And what that means is that funding agencies like the Medical Research Council, you know, they're inundated with really good proposals, you know, super exciting ideas in terms of advancing medical research, which makes it very competitive, as it should be, because that drives us to bring our best ideas to the table. But having dedicated charities funding specific areas of research like blood cancer and other types of cancer and other diseases means that there's that sort of designated funding stream to ensure that research carries on going in these really important areas. And what these organizations also do is create a community of, you know, researchers that are funded through these organizations, that then meet each other at, you know, research days and events like that, and start to interact with one another and share ideas and collaborate. And so it fosters that network of research as well, which, you know, those kind of interactions may lead to new ideas and new developments in the future.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Sarah. That's been hugely interesting and hugely informative. And, you know, thank you so much for giving us your time to, you know, to talk today.
Thanks very much, Camilla. It's been lovely to meet you.